Okay, well, let's transition to the last part of our show. This is what we call Ask Al, the Ask Al segment, where we take questions on sales from our listeners and we answer them on the air. And so if you have a question about sales and you would like me to answer it on the air, then send your question to al.simon@sandler.com. And you just might get your question read. Like Amanda here. Amanda says, this is her question. This is a fairly complicated question, so everybody listen up. Amanda says, my customers keep asking for my price range, from my lowest package to my highest package that I offer in my services. So she says, when I share with them my cost range, they don't call me back or they just go elsewhere. By the way, we call that sticker shock, right? Sticker shock is the common word for that. And so she says, how do I direct them away from that question and help close more deals? And that's the bottom line. Okay, so think of yourself as a prospect for someone else. You're sitting with a salesperson and you're a prospect for that salesperson. What do you want to know? Well, you want to know how much it's going to cost me, right? That's what you want to know, and that's the common question. And if you're in sales, you got to be ready for that question. It's going to happen. And you got to be able to answer that question. Very important. However, there is an order to things. And in order to eliminate, or at least in some way mitigate the that price shock, right? I mean, in order to get rid of that, or mitigate it, you have to be able to handle the order of things. So we always say that you never cover money or budget before you cover pain in your sales conversations. What we mean by pain, we mean that pain is the reasons why people might buy from you. They're usually going away from some kind of a bad situation or wanting to go toward a better situation. And we call both of those pain. You got to have that conversation before you start naming numbers. Why? Because of sticker shock. If you think about it, if you think, if you as a prospect for someone hear a number that was higher than you expected, and they haven't taken you through really what we used to call a value proposition, probably still do, but you don't have a value proposition to attach to that number, then immediately in your mind you eliminate this particular seller. Fair? That's what happens. All right. So that's what's happening to Amanda, apparently. And so what we really need to do is we really need to make sure that we say to someone who asks us about price, and they don't know they're asking out of order, right? They just want to know. So you say, Christian, that's a great question. Obviously, you need to get the answer to that question. So let's get that for you. Here's the process I use to get you there. I got a few questions. Probably take, 15, 20 minutes to ask you enough questions so I can narrow things down, give you a great idea of how we would package it for you and what your investment would be. And then at that point, you can tell me either to go jump in a lake or you can say, okay, let's take another step and see if it makes sense. Does that sound fair?
It does. Sounds fair.
And, of course, we call that in our world an upfront contract, but it's a way of keeping control of the sales process. Now, if Christian says, no, I don't want to go through 15, 20 minutes of questions. I just want to know the price. Just give me an approximate range. Well, if that happens, then you've got to go ahead and give him a range. But you got to make it a pretty big range, right? You can't start making assumptions, because what if I say to Christian, well, okay, I bet it's probably going to be around $50,000. And so now he's happy because he's got a number. Maybe he's unhappy because it's more than he was expecting for whatever it is I'm selling. Well, then I'm going to have to deal with that expectation. But at least I've got something on the table, and if he wants to back out now, I should let him and not even talk too much about the pain. Okay? But the other problem is if I tell him, let's say $50,000, and then we talk more about the pain, and I realize, scope creep, this is really more like $70,000, well, then I got a problem because I circumvented my system of selling because I didn't like him making me uncomfortable with his questions, and now I've really shot myself in the foot with this person. So you really got to say, you know what, Christian, I appreciate that you really want to know, and that you don't want to go through 15 or 20 minutes worth of questions. I get it. I wouldn't either, probably. So I can give you an idea, but then we really need to narrow it down after that. You okay if we have that conversation? And then, and by the way, if he balks a second time at that, Richard, I'm probably going to think in my mind, this is not someone I want to work with anyway. And Because if you think about it, someone who wants you to get off your system and follow their system and insists on that, when is that going to stop? If they become a client, are they ever going to stop trying to run your business? Right? They're never going to stop. That's just the way they are. They're going to always want to make you follow their lead. Okay, well, if that's okay with you, fine. But most of my clients, no. They need to have their system because they know what works. So, Amanda, that's the way I would handle it if I were you. You may not like that answer, but you know what? At Sandler, we say sometimes you got to have 5 seconds of guts. When they ask you the question, how much this is, and you know that's not a good way to go yet, you got to have 5 seconds of guts and say, certainly, let's get you that answer. Here's how we do that. Here's the process. And then lay that process out, see if they're going to follow the process or not. And that's the sales tip today from Al Simon with Sandler Training by Simon Inc.